how to build a life worth living. And what do you do when you feel like you want to give up? That is the topic for today's video, which I will be covering. This is based on my last video where we're doing a 30-day challenge. This is day 26, and I record a 10-minute video chosen by ChatGPT. So how do you create a life worth living? This is something that I actually feel very astute enough to teach because I live a life worth living. Every day I get to go outside and see the beauty of Seattle. I connect with my family. I create art that is meaningful to me. I work with people that I love to work with. And I make a lot of good money for the amount of time that I invest into making money. And my goal or my belief around a life worth living is that it's creating a life where I spend as much time doing the things that I love with people that I love and make as much money as possible on the way. So how do you do this? Well, I think the first step is to figure out what is a life worth living for you. Because I think this is one of the fundamental questions that most people don't actually take the time to examine. So if you don't know what a life worth living is for you, then how can you possibly take the steps towards making it happen? So the first thing you have to do is figure it out. The right question for this could be something like, if you were given $1 billion and could do whatever you wanted right now, what would that life look like? And something really important to go through with something like this is to really pause for a second when you're thinking about this, because it's very easy to get caught up into like, oh, I'd buy a yacht and I would go travel here and I would travel there and I would do this thing and that thing. But like, really take a second and really think like write it down. Like write down 20 things that you would do with that money. And you'll be surprised at how hard it is to actually maybe come up with 20 things that you actually really desire, that actually feel meaningful to you, that would sustain you. Because if you're super burnt out in a job right now, you might be thinking, oh my God, I just want to travel. You just want to travel. Cool. Go travel. Go travel. But then once you're done traveling, then what? Because anybody who's ever taken a significant vacation, anybody who's taken a lot of time off, becomes a point in time where you can only sit on the beach and drink margaritas for that long before you get bored or depressed or anxious, because you're not finding something that's more fulfilling for you. And so one of the things that people often talk about with, for retirement, for example, is that most people, when they retire, kind of become depressed, and life expectancy kind of drops off really quickly because they stop engaging in work that is meaningful to them, right? And so something that I really believe in is the idea that I don't really ever plan on truly retiring. I'm getting to a point where I don't do or make or create anything. Instead, what I want to focus on is how do I create a life that is highly sustainable, highly enjoyable from moment to moment to moment, that I wake up most of my days and think, I get to live. I get to be doing the thing. I get to be making progress towards the things that are meaningful to me. I get to be surrounded by, for me, meaningful art, and get to engage in beauty, which is one of my biggest values and things that I really love. And what are my values? How do I live those things out? So again, the first step to building a life worth living is to understand what that is for you. Now, the other trap is that a lot of people think that they know what they want when they actually don't. Now, this is kind of connected to what we just talked about, but a lot of people have this idea in their mind about what success is or what a life worth living is. They're kind of the same thing in a lot of ways, right? And a lot of those times, those definitions are not things that are actually intrinsic, which means self-defined. Yet they don't belong to the person. They don't have inherent value in of themselves. They're arbitrary goals. And so, for example, if you're maybe an actor, maybe you have a goal of being an Academy Award-winning actor because you have seen that is the highest, barometer of success. But if you talk to some actors who have achieved that Academy Award or the Emmy, how many of them have achieved that and then gone into a pit of despair after that because they had spent so much time and energy going after this one thing only to get it and then be unhappy. And to realize they had spent 20, 30 years of their life chasing something. Because you can, like, through action is how you achieve things. But you can achieve something and spend 20, 30 years of action to get to a place and still not find happiness. So the real trick is, like, how do you become happy now? How do you make your life a moment-to-moment, day-to-day thing that you actually enjoy? How do you fill it with things that are meaningful to you? How do you find ways to make progress in such a way that not only are you moving toward the goal, but you're moving toward your goal in a way that is meaningful to you? A valuable question for this, kind of thing is, like, again, if you were to become a billionaire, like, what would you do with all that money? Like, if money weren't a concern anymore, if time weren't a concern anymore, if you didn't have any of these, like, obligations that you tell yourself you have, how would you actually want to spend your time, and why? And notice that usually when money stops going away, we start paying attention to other things. And a lot of times those things can be things that we actually start doing now. So if you want to travel, could you be saving some money to go travel? Could you find local things to be traveling to? Could you find groups to be a part of? If you want to make music, and, like, one day you can just, like, sit around and make music. Well, what if you just started making music now? What if you took 30 minutes every day to just plug away a little bit of time and making music? And I think I find myself with, like, time-bound containers to be really valuable, because other times it can feel very overwhelming. But creating a small habit like that, like 15 minutes, even 30 minutes a day, working towards these projects that are meaningful to you, or taking steps in an area that are meaningful to you, where it's just, like, blocked out and you can let your, like, natural creativity fill it. That's, like, something that works really well for me, especially when it's time-bound. And I think especially in this current world that we're in, it can be really easy when we're going through these, even if we know the life that we want to build and what is worth living, that we feel like we want to give up. And it can feel overwhelming and daunting, and all of a sudden we're trying to build this thing that we want to build, this life worth living, and we kind of lose touch, and all of a sudden we find ourselves miserable on the way to this, life that is worth building, supposedly. And then we've lost the whole point. So I think one of the biggest keys with that, and this is something I'm being reminded too of in the moment, is to remember why. To regularly be in touch with your why. Like, why is this thing worth building? Why do you want this? Why are you doing this whole thing? What is that vision that compelled you to start this journey? And how can you touch that on a regular day-to-day basis? Because when you're tapped into those greater feelings and you're remembering why you're doing what it is, and you haven't gotten lost in the sauce of the moment and how terrible and awful all the things are, and that you'll never be successful, and that you'll always be a failure, no one will ever love you, or maybe they do, but it doesn't matter because you can't ever achieve the success that you want. Like, remember that why you did this, and to focus on the things that actually matter. They're going to move you towards those bigger things. That, like, every step along the process is part of this journey, this dance. On the topic of journey, I do want to end with this idea from Alan Watts, which is that life is not a journey. It's a song. And it's not about getting to a destination at the end, pilgrimage, where you're trying to get to heaven or achieve some modicum of success or money or whatever it is, but instead that it is a musical thing, and you were meant to sing and dance while the music was being played. My question more for you is, how can you make life more beautiful, more meaningful for you? What's one small step today you can take to create a life worth living? My name is Cameron Edward Benton. If you like this kind of thing, or want to leave a suggested topic for tomorrow's video, leave a comment in the comments below, and I'll see you on the next one. Ciao.